How is it going, guys? Today we're going to be upgrading the sound system in the WRX because let's be honest, Subarus are not known for their sound quality. And if you really think about it, it makes sense. This is an economic sports car, so a lot of the R&D and budget goes into the performance side of things, and some of the creature comforts kind of get left behind, especially in the base model. And nowadays, the head unit does a lot more than just control the sound system. You have the backup camera, HVAC controls, navigation, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and a bunch of other features crammed into the head unit. So now its main focus is not to produce the highest quality sound. And to a lot of manufacturers, that's actually not that important because a lot of people just don't care, or they haven't heard a high quality sound system, so they don't know any better, or they just care more about the other features. But that is where this little box comes into play. This is the Beatsonic PA2 amplifier. This is the same amplifier that I have installed in my GR86, and being able to hear a side-by-side comparison of the stock sound system versus the system with one of these installed, night and day difference, and it convinced me that I need to install one of these in the WRX. Now this has one job and one job only, and that's to produce the highest quality sound, whereas the head unit has a lot to do. Now, I'm not gonna get into the specifics of how it does it because quite frankly, I'm not an expert, but I do know this was designed by dedicated audio engineers using high quality Japanese components. And to me, hearing is believing. So hopefully you guys are able to hear a difference in this video. But before we get into the install, if you are wanting to pick one of these up for yourself, you can use my code KevinV20 to get $20 off your order for the month of December. I'll leave a link down in the description. But with all that being said and done, let's go ahead and jump into the install, and I'll show you guys how easy it is. First things first, we need to remove this panel on the passenger side. There's gonna be a slot on the very bottom for you to insert a plastic pry tool, and that's where you can get it started. And then you can just work your way all the way up, and it should just pop right off. This whole trim piece here is gonna come off next by grabbing this area by the vent and pulling away from the dash. It's just some pop clips, just like that panel we pulled off. Once that trim piece is popped out, if you look behind it, you're gonna see these two tabs here that are kind of locked into position. What we need to do is pull the trim piece over to the driver's side to release it in these openings here. That reveals these two Phillips head screws that we'll need to remove, and once those are out of the way, we can actually pop off the whole radio bezel surround, including the hood up here, and pop it off of the dash. So now I'm just gonna carefully start prying away from the dash with my fingers here. Now there is going to be a connection over on the driver's side for the trip reset button, so don't forget that and don't just pull this straight off, otherwise you'll damage the harness. So I'm going to try and reach back here and disconnect that. All right. There we go. With that bezel removed, that exposes the 4 10mm bolts that are holding the head unit in place. There's 2 on the bottom on the sides here, 1 right here, and 1 over here, and then 2 at the very top back there. So we're gonna remove that, and that's gonna allow us to pull the head unit out and disconnect the connections. Before I pull the head unit off, I'm gonna put a microfiber towel down just to help prevent scratching up the center console. But with those bolts removed, we should be able to pull this off and gain access to the connections on the back side. Now we're not actually gonna be able to pull this out very far. At the very top here, there's gonna be a connection that I'm gonna disconnect right now. And then that should allow us to pull this out just a little further so we can see these connections on the back. We don't actually need to disconnect all the connections on the back of the head unit here, even though I'm gonna do so, but that's just to show you how I'm gonna route the new harness that's included. If you're doing this yourself, you're just gonna need to disconnect these 2 connectors right here on the passenger side. So there's a 6-pin and a 10-pin connector that you will disconnect. Let me see if I can do this with one hand here. So that one and maybe that one right there. That's the only two that you need to disconnect. And these two connectors go into the new harness, and the new harness has a pass-through that will plug right back into the head unit. So this is the harness that I was talking about that's included with your new amp. We have these two pass-throughs here. The female connectors are gonna connect to the OEM harness, and then the male connectors are gonna go to the head unit. You also have this black wire here. This is the ground wire. All you have to do is unscrew one of the Phillips head screws on the side of the head unit, slide this into place, and then tighten it back down. And then you have this extension here that plugs into the amplifier itself. So let me go ahead and plug these in, and I'll show you guys how I'm gonna route it. I've got the new harness installed. Let's take a look at this here. So I've got the harness plugged into the OEM harness, and then I've tucked the excess down and back into the crevice here, but routed the portion that needs to be plugged into the amp up behind this plastic piece here. And the amp is just gonna sit on top right here, on top of the metal bar and that plastic piece. We'll put some double-sided tape to stick it on there. Now we can do this on the base model because nothing occupies this space. If we take a look at the head unit here, there's nothing in this area. So we have all this space to work with, and this mounts perfectly in that area. For those of you who have the higher trim models, you are gonna have something mounted here, but what you can do is just mount the amplifier on top of that piece. And I believe there is enough of a gap in this portion for you to just mount it on top, and you should be fine. But that is where we're gonna mount it for the base model, folks. We have the gain adjustments on here. And like I said earlier, this is just gonna go to the head unit. And don't forget the black ground wire. And before we put everything back together, we're gonna test it to make sure everything is working like it should. All right, let's try and get this radio reinstalled without scratching anything up. Oh, where did I put that microfiber? That would probably help to not scratch things up. Don't forget the plug on the top portion here. Oh, I almost forgot. We gotta install that ground wire. So I'm just gonna use, like I said, one of the Phillips head screws on the side, just loosen it up, and then we'll slide it underneath the screw head, and then tighten it down, and that's it. Push this into place. All right. We positioned the amplifier in the perfect place. It's not interfering with anything. Like I said, I'm not gonna put the rest of the trim pieces back yet. We're gonna test this out, make sure it works, and then we can reinstall everything. That sounds so much better, guys. It's crazy how much of a difference that little thing can make. All right, now that we know it's working like it's supposed to, now's where you can go in and adjust the gain on the amplifier. I'm gonna leave it as is. It comes set at 50%. I think that's a good level. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of the trim reinstalled. And actually, before I installed this, I did some testing, or I grabbed some shots of some songs with the camera in the car. We've got the same settings on there right now. So I'm gonna play through the same songs once I have everything reinstalled, and we'll see if we can hear a difference. We can reinstall the 4 10mm bolts to lock the head unit into place. Okay, now we can take the radio bezel surround and slide it back into place. Don't forget to plug the trip reset button back in, otherwise you're gonna have to take it all apart again. There we go. Line up all the tabs, and it should go back in just like that. Now we can reinstall the 2 screws, and then it's just 2 more panels over here, and that's it. Super easy, guys. This piece goes in next. We gotta line up the 2 tabs on the back side here. And it just pops into place. Last piece is easy enough. There we go, that's it, guys. I don't know how well the difference in sound is gonna translate through this video, because you guys could just be listening on your phone or earbuds or headphones or computer speakers, but sitting here inside the car, I can instantly hear the difference. And I've sat in other people's cars that have this same amp and I've gotten the same feedback. It's a much more rich and bassy sound, and it's as though you're able to enjoy more aspects of the music that you weren't able to hear before. Before I installed this in my GR86, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to hear a big difference, especially since I'm not a huge audio guy. But after installing this in 2 different cars and sitting in other people's cars and listening to different types of music, it's crazy how much of a difference this little thing can make. I thought that you would need to change out all your speakers, upgrade your head unit to achieve an outcome like this, but it turns out that it's much easier than that. You guys saw how easy it was to pull off the panels. It's literally 2 screws, 4 bolts, and you have the head unit out. You can install one of these in about 30 minutes to an hour. It's plug and play. Beatsonic has a hell of a product here for about 250 bucks. You don't have to mess with the speakers or the head unit. It's a no-brainer for me. If you care about the sound quality in your car and you don't want to shell out a bunch of money for upgraded speakers or a head unit, pick one of these up. You can use my code KevinV20 to get $20 off your order. The link will be down in the description. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, I'm always happy to help. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Hopefully you guys are enjoying all the new content. If you are, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.